Hello, welcome, cheers, virtual cheers, everyone, and welcome to the first ever Queen's Faculty of Arts and Science virtual homecoming event. Now, doing this virtually is obviously a little different from being on campus celebrating, but I'm just so happy to be able to talk about Queens, to think about Queens, to take a trip down memory lane with people who really share in my delight in terms of reminiscing about that time. I'm Kate McKenna. I'll be your host this afternoon. I'm an Arts Sci 08 grad. I'm a former varsity soccer player and a former writer for the Queen's Journal. Now, since Queen's, there have been some wins for me. I found a career that I love in television as a producer and on air. I've, as many of you, I'm sure, maintained some really significant friendships and relationships with people I met while in Kingston. But there have been some losses, namely, I married a Western Mustang. I'm disclosing this to you up front. I hope you won't hold that against me as we hang out and celebrate over the next 45 minutes. Now, before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that Queens is situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory, and we are so grateful to live, to play, and to learn on these lands. Now, I want to give a quick shout out to the over 600 Faculty of Arts and Science alum joining us tonight. It's an incredible turnout. I don't know about you though, I'm not surprised because nothing gets in the way of a Queen's grad celebrating homecoming, not even a pandemic. So I'm gonna ask a question just so we can all get to know each other off the top. We have Faculty of Arts and Science alum joining us from all over the world tonight. So I wanna know if you can use the chat function, tell me what city are you in right now? Write it in the chat, let me know. I'm gonna head on over there and see what's happening, see where you're all coming from. Okay, happy homecoming. Happy homecoming to you, Lee. Happy homecoming. It's so nice. As I was watching the chat earlier, I could see people connecting who had been in the same, I think it was musical theater class. It was so nice to see people connecting in that way. So here we go. I just want to check and see where everyone is coming to us from today. So we have Alex in Ottawa, Artside 10 Geography. Hi, Alex in Ottawa. From Kingston. So Sarah, you didn't travel far, but thank you for coming and joining us today. Philadelphia, amazing. Bellevue, Washington, Vancouver, Prince George. It is so, so nice to be connecting with all of you, to see Yarker, Ontario. Hello, Daniel. It's so nice to see where everyone is coming from today. We have an awesome agenda planned today. You'll have the opportunity to hear from the current Faculty of Arts and Science Dean, Barbara Crow. You'll get to join in on an interactive Queens Then and Now segment with your fellow Arts and Science alum. And you'll also get to hear from Dr. Derek Muller, so he's Sci 04, and he's the creator of the popular YouTube channel Veritasium. This has over 7 million subscribers. So if you haven't gone and checked this out, after this, I'm telling you, go check it out. It is phenomenal. And he's going to chat with Nobel laureate and Queen's Emeritus Professor, Dr. Art McDonald. They're going to chat about Dr. McDonald's incredible international efforts to create an easy-to-build ventilator to support the fight against COVID-19 across the globe. It's a really, really inspiring project. It's brought together by supporters from all over the world. So we are so thrilled to be able to share that segment with you. Now, before we get into the program, a few housekeeping notes on how to navigate this virtual space that we're in. And I got to say, if you've made it this far, you are doing great. So cheers to you. So by now, most of you would have already set up your profile. So if you haven't done so, please click the Create Your Profile button on the left before you start networking. And you can also click Find a Classmate to request a one-on-one meeting with anyone in attendance. And once both parties have agreed to a meeting, your video chat will open and you can connect that way. We also encourage you to check out the activity feed and post photos of your experience. I can promise you're going to want those photos in future too, to tell others about the year that we had to do homecoming virtually, and we did it successfully. And if at any point you need technical help, no shame in that, please click the help desk button. Got it? You still with me? I hope so, because we have an awesome, awesome afternoon plan. And last question before we get into some of the presentations, I want to know what year, what decade did you all graduate in? So head to the chat. I'm going to head to the chat, and I want to know what year, what year and decade did you graduate in? Here we go. So great to see geographers so well represented. That's what Raymond just said. Many geography grads joining us today. What decade did you graduate in? I see Arts 59. Rob says he's glad to hear the physicists are front and center. Sci 91 and current head of the physics department. Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so nice to see where everyone's from, to hear what decade, what year you graduated in. I mean, this is the benefit of doing this virtually, is you get to talk and see and connect with people almost in a more significant way than you would if you were in person, in terms of expanding your community and meeting Queen's grads you may not otherwise meet. Rhonda just joined us, ArtSci 1975. Hello, Rhonda. Thank you all so much for joining in. I'll be checking in on the chat over the next little while. But now it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Dean Barbara Crow. Dr. Crow was appointed Dean of Arts and Science at Queen's University in July 2017. She's responsible for overseeing the overall operations of the Faculty of Arts and Science, including developing and supporting the faculty's long and short-term goals, policies, fundraising efforts, strategic initiatives, and academic priorities. She does it all. Her research interests lie in the areas of feminism, aging and technology, and the way in which they intersect, and specifically the various impacts of digital technology. Prior to joining Queen's, Dr. Crow was the Associate Vice President and Dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies at York University. She holds a BAH, a Bachelor of Arts Honors in Political Science and Women's Studies, and an MA and PhD in Sociology. So welcome, Barbara. We are so thrilled that you could join us for this virtual event to provide an update to all of us on what the Faculty of Arts and Science looks like today. Welcome.
Hey, listen, and Kate, thank you so much for hosting. Your energy is fabulous, and it's been wonderful to work with you these last couple of days. So I just want to say welcome to my living room. Who would have ever imagined that for your homecoming, you would be going to the Dean's house? And it's a beautiful day here in Kingston. You would have loved being here. The weather is just really quite amazing. So, and a big shout out to the class of 2020. They're going to be most expert in navigating and negotiating this virtual space, and they've had an incredible year. I really want to thank Sheila for her tricolor hair today, and with her spirit, and Rico have been doing a great job co-hosting our virtual homecoming, and also to Advancement, who've done a fabulous job. A shout out to Colleen, and our VP Advancement, Karen Bertrand, is here, who's also an Arts and Sci grad. Thanks for all the work that you've done. To our signers, Katie and David. And away we go to give you an update on what's been happening in arts and science. So should I go to the slide now? All right. So what I'm going to do right now is we're just going to move to a slide presentation. So have we got the first slide? Is it up? Okay, so can we go to the second slide then? Have I got Queens in the 21st century up? Have I got slide 3 that says critical issues? Critical issues, thank you. Hi, okay, so what I'm going to do is, what I thought I would do was take an opportunity to share with you, for some of you who haven't been on campus for decades, and for those who've just left, some things that have been happening in the Faculty of Arts and Science. First off, and a shout out to Daniel Wolf. Hello, Daniel, who's an Arts and Sci grant, and he's here right now. But we have a new principal, and some of you met him earlier today, and he has put a new declaration, a conversation about taking Queen's in a new, bold direction. And in particular, I strongly encourage you to read what he has put out for us to think about who Queen's can be. He's very interested in local community engagement, global engagement, research and teaching, and in particular, our relationship with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But what I really think is important for you to hear about is, you know, What's happened in arts and science, the most significant issue for us has been COVID-19, as we've moved our whole operation of arts and science online and remote. And also involved with that significant shift, two things that have been really important from that. First is I have watched my colleagues, students, staff, and faculty engage with what's most important at the university with learning. I've watched all of these communities take up learning, and we've also seen the incredible value of the university in the ways in which our researchers have been pivotal to much of the work, the modeling, ventilators, mental health support during COVID. One of the critical issues we're facing right now in COVID has been mental health, the mental health of our students, our staff, and our faculty, and the significant challenges that's raised for us as an organization for us to care for our students and faculty, as many are feeling isolated, and of course the uncertainty how long this is going to go on. And of course what COVID has done is reminded us and brought the world to us and our significant place now in the globe and knowing about what's happening around in the rest of the world. Next slide. So here are some just quick facts that you need to know about the Faculty of Arts and Science. There are 30 departments. We have 15,000 students in arts and science, and you can see all of the various issues that we have. But what's important for you to know too is that to get into Queen's Arts and Science, you need an 88.4 average. So it's just incredible. We have an first year class of around 3,200 students, and it's very, very competitive to get into the university. Next slide. One of the things, I'm new to Queen's myself, and one of the things, I'm an evidence-based person. I wanted to get to know the university, and one of the things that's really quite interesting is that in the last 20 years, almost 70% of the undergraduate students have been female. Next slide. The other thing is we've had our domestic tuition has increased, but as you can see, not that significantly, but to give you a sense about what it costs to go to the university. And it's certainly the case that we have we have our international students and a very high tuition for them. Next slide. You can see our international enrollments. Queen's was one of the universities with one of the lower number of international students, and as Daniel Wolf, this was one of his very important initiatives, is that we increase the presence of international students. It's really important to have international students. Again, it's a reflection of our global engagement and about students wanting to come to Queen's and for us to be learning from other students on campus. And currently, the Faculty of Arts and Science has the highest number of international students at 17%, although the number did go down this year given the pandemic. Next slide. I've been really fortunate as the Dean of Arts and Science to have the enormous privilege of doing hiring in a context in the sector where there has not been much hiring. We've hired a third of our faculty of new hires, and I'm really excited to report that 70% of them are in equity-seeking groups, and in particular, the faculty we've hired reflect the changes also in the sociodemographics of our student population. Next slide. What we encountered was with the Ford government in 2018, they cut tuition by 10%. There was a big cut and shifting of the way the Ontario Student Assistance Program worked. But one of the things that the Ford government introduced was an opting out of fees for students in organizations. And you can just imagine what that meant for the Faculty of Arts and Science. And because how important clubs, athletics, citizenship, volunteering, so enormous amount of labor last year for our students as they negotiated what they were going to do with the significant loss of fees and how they were going to facilitate student engagement in this context. The next slide. As part of my work as Dean, I am, as I said earlier, evidence-based, and I'm very interested in deliverables and outcomes and how to move forward. I'm absolutely thrilled to be the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Science. We're one of 5 in over 100 universities of one of the largest contingencies that has arts and science together. And as Sheila said in her opening remarks today, science will lead the way out and arts will take us through. I am very excited about a research plan that we have 50 recommendations. We're already through a number of them, and it's all about transforming our spaces as students want more interactive learning and experiential learning experiences, how to enhance the student experience, how to support our people, and strengthen our research prominence. And what's been at the core of our strategic plan is demonstrating the value and the complexity of the wicked issues and problems that we're engaged with today, and why we need to collaborate and work together as the arts and science. And I think this is enormous value added that our students are getting access to the arts and the science. Next slide. So I hope that just gives you a little bit of an update about what the faculty looks like, because when you come on campus, it doesn't feel like a campus of 25,000 students. There's been a lot of attention to ensure and keep that Queen's experience. But for those of you who are alumni, and ways in which you can work with me, and I'm very excited and I really enjoy working with alumni, is to participate in the Life After Art Sci. We've done a really great job in reaching out to our alumni and networking and accessing our undergraduate students with our grads, with an event about ways in which you could work with a very wonderful federal program that provides funding for experiential learning and internships. So if you're interested in hiring a Queen's student, we can provide some matching fund for that. Ways in which we can supplement the cuts that have happened to our student organizations, and of course, as always, contribute to student bursaries so we can give as many individuals and students possible the opportunity to study at Queen's. So that's it for me on just sort of giving an update on what arts and science is looking like right now. And back over to you, Kate.
Look at you scrolling back to me like the professional, broadcaster that I know you're not, but sure sounds like you could be. Thank you so much for that. And you know what, you're not done yet, because we're going to put you in the hot seat now to take some questions. So if you have a question for Barbara, I would love if you would use the chat function. So not the Q&A function, but the chat function, and type your question, and I will ask it to Barbara. Greetings from Malaysia. It's still so nice to see everyone rolling in and saying hello. Okay, Barbara, we have a question from Erica.
Okay.
What has been your most memorable or inspiring alumni interaction since arriving at Queen's?
Wow, well, thanks for that question. I can tell you, I have never met such an amazing group of people who care so much. And I was afraid of it at first for the Queen's alumni getting involved with it, but now it's one of the most favorite parts of my job. I get to meet the most amazing people around the world. And I have to say my favorite event is Life After Art Sci, because it's so great to see the generosity of alumni and the joy and eagerness of our undergraduate and graduate students who get to meet people who have gone to Queen's and how they can bond over what their experience is like, and the generosity of the alumni about opening doors for possibilities for them. So I take enormous pleasure with the Life After Art Sci event.
And did you say you were afraid of it at first? Was it because of the exuberance and the passion that
Yes.
Queen's alum bring?
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, the oil thigh, I still try to, I'm not sure about that yet, but it's turned out to be a most rewarding part of my job.
I hear you. I absolutely understand. I was just teasing.
Yeah.
Here's another question from Sarah. What's one significant change you anticipate to arts and science at Queen's in the post-pandemic world?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And certainly the post-secondary sector around the globe is struggling. And also I see enormous challenges and opportunities. As I raised earlier, you know, we're addressing some of the mental health as people are adjusting to being enclosed with the isolation. In some ways, we've been able to open up. Like today, we're having alumni that wouldn't have come to an event on other kinds of things, but it's still a head and shoulder experience, and that's been challenging. But what I see, our strategic plan, many of the goals of our strategic plan have been accelerated because of the pandemic. We were interested in trying to provide more courses for students in the spring and summer. That's happening now. We've been interested in different kinds of ways we can use some of the technology, and we've had some professors doing some incredible work with pedagogy and teaching within the classroom that they hadn't anticipated or knew that was possible. So I see those as, I think we're going to see a shift in pedagogy. I think we're going to see a shift in who and how we access and when we access the curriculum and the university. So those are the things that I see as being really important. And I also think, I mean, a big shout out to the class of 2020 and the class of 2024, because they are going to be the students who were impacted and engaged and are going to provide a significant leadership as we move forward. So I want to make sure we're getting the right tools for them to be successful and thrive.
Thank you so much for that. Sometimes it's tough to feel connected to campus when you're not there. So it was so nice to hear from you today and to get a bit of a snapshot in terms of what's going on in the faculty. So thank you, Barbara, and enjoy the rest of homecoming.
Yes, thank you. And have a great time, everyone. And thanks for participating in this virtual homecoming. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Take care. Next up, I would like to introduce this year's Queen's Student Alumni Association President, Aryan Chaudhry, to say a few words on behalf of current students and the QSAA. Welcome, Aryan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aryan Chaudhry, and I'm a fourth-year applied economics student in the Faculty of Arts and Science, and this year's president of the Queen's Student Alumni Association. While this year definitely looks different than usual, we're so grateful for your continued involvement and engagement with Queen's. With this year being held remotely for the Faculty of Arts and Science, it is more important than ever for students to feel like they are part of the Queen's family. My job as president is to ensure that students transition smoothly into becoming engaged alumni. In a year like this, it is more important than ever to foster an environment where students feel connected to one another and the university. As a member of the graduating class of 2021, and a soon-to-be alumni myself, it is an honor to work as president in a year like this to ensure that the student-alumni connection remains strong. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's programming, and we can't wait to see you all again on campus soon. Kaya.
Well, thank you so much, Aryan. I know so many of us are looking forward to the day we can return to campus, no doubt about that. Now it's my pleasure, my great pleasure, to introduce our next speakers, Derek Muller and Art McDonald. Dr. Derek Muller, Sci 04, is the creator of science YouTube channel Veritasium, an element of truth, which has over 7 million subscribers and 800 million views, over 800 million views, which is staggering. With a background in engineering and a PhD in physics education, he performs experiments, visits cutting-edge science facilities, and creates animated explainers on everything from black holes to quantum physics. He has hosted award-winning broadcast documentaries for PBS, was a correspondent on Bill Nye's Netflix series, and has appeared on stage in conversation with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Chris Hadfield. And he's not alone today. Derek is joined by Dr. Art McDonald, Canadian astrophysicist and Queen's Professor Emeritus, who is well known as co-recipient of the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physics for his breakthrough research related to neutrinos. And for all the arts grads out there, I can confirm neutrinos, not a breakfast cereal. I was confused at first, can confirm, not a breakfast cereal. Most recently, Dr. McDonald has been leading an incredible international effort to create an easy-to-build ventilator to support the fight against COVID-19 across the globe. It is my pleasure to welcome Derek and Art.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Queen's Homecoming 2020 Virtual Edition. I am Derek Muller, a graduate of engineering physics. I'm Sci 04, and these days I make a YouTube channel called Veritasium, which is all about science. So I've gone from, engineering and physics to YouTube. That is my path. And I am really excited to be here with Dr. Art McDonald. He is a Canadian astrophysicist and Queen's Professor Emeritus who is well known as the co-recipient of the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physics for his breakthrough related to neutrinos, something that I'd love to talk about in detail. I actually worked on the Sudbury Neutrino Observatory for one summer. But more recently, Dr. McDonald has been leading an international effort with a team of physicists and engineers to create an easy-to-build ventilator that can help treat COVID-19 patients. So thank you for joining me on this call today and talking about this really important work. So, Dr. McDonald, I'm really curious about this ventilator project. How did you get involved with it? How did you start thinking ventilators after? I mean, I imagine that's a bit of a side turn in your career.
Well, yes, but it originated because of ongoing research that I was involved in. We have been looking for dark matter particles interacting with liquid argon in our underground laboratory, Snow Lab, where we can essentially eliminate all other signals and look for these dark matter particles that would penetrate through the 2 kilometers of rock above us with an experiment called the DEEP experiment. Our colleagues internationally, and we have been working on a much larger project, about 10 times larger, in a laboratory in Italy. Colleagues in Italy were, as it happens, locked down in Milan, which, as you remember, was one of the original epicenters of COVID. And the leader of the project there realized that the technology we've been using, in part on handling argon, gas and liquid, was relevant to the production of ventilators where you're delivering air to the patient in a controlled way. And so he called me up and asked if I would be interested in participating. He called a number of people there, and I was able to talk with the directors of the Triumph Laboratory in Vancouver, Particle Physics Laboratory, Chalk River Nuclear Laboratories in Chalk River, Ontario, with expertise in engineering and a variety of things, Snow Lab, and also the people at the McDonald Institute here at Queen's. Everyone, and ultimately we had perhaps 200 scientists and engineers around the world working on this, mainly in Italy, Canada, and the United States. Everyone decided that, wow, here's something that we have some skill at, and it can be applied to COVID. What a wonderful thing to try to do in this otherwise somewhat helpless feeling one has in the COVID situation. So that's the story of how we got started. We're now at the point where this week we're in the process of starting production of 10,000 ventilators by a manufacturer in Markham, Texas, is the name of the manufacturer. And that's in response to a Canadian government contract, initially to hopefully deal with any future waves of COVID in Canada, but also potentially with the possibility that they might be donated to countries in need, of which there are many in the third world that are really being hit by COVID.
So what sets this ventilator technology apart from, the existing ventilators that were out there?
Well, it's strongly targeted at COVID-19, and it is simple in its concept. We took sort of a first principles approach, very simple. You have an inlet valve and an outlet valve, the pressurized source of oxygen, and all the sophistication goes into the sensors and control mechanisms and the software, which is something we are quite familiar with in terms of our experiments. And so we end up with a ventilator that's among the lowest cost of international ventilators, and also has only about 50 central pieces rather than 1,500.
Wow.
And therefore, we were able to work on the supply chain. Although I will say we were greatly benefited by people who donated money to enable us to lock up supplies of the 10,000 parts we needed for critical elements. And these donors stepped forward and donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to us so that we could, prior to the government contract, go out and obtain these critical parts and stockpile them.
So how do you feel seeing all of this work kind of finally coming to fruition, that they're actually going to get built and distributed?
Well, I think everybody on the team is extremely pleased that it has worked out well, so that we're able to make a contribution, and we're hoping that these ventilators are going to be something that saves lives in the COVID situation. I think everyone on the project, and I think it's true for our donors as well, they simply feel good to be able to make a contribution by supporting this project.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, yeah, thank you for taking this on. I think that's it's remarkable that you've been able to make that switch and work so hard to get something that's actually going out there to really help people in this really tough time.
Well, thank you for saying that. We certainly are very pleased with the project, and pleased that we are able to make a contribution. Our team is still actively involved with the manufacturers in the quality assurance elements of the production and so on. And so it's an ongoing activity, although much less intense than it was for the first 4 months or so. It was 7 hours, multiple hours a day, 7 days a week for everyone. So,
yeah. I've got to ask you about dark matter. Do you think we're going to detect it, and when?
I really have no idea, because it is a very puzzling situation where, well, 5 times as much matter as what we're made of is apparently holding our galaxy into its present form. But so far, other than knowing things that it is not, which is not like the matter of the particles we're made of, we only know how it interacts gravitationally. So we have one of the best opportunities to look in a region which is a plausible description of dark matter, and to look over many orders of magnitude, ironically, eventually being limited by a background created by neutrinos penetrating into our laboratory at Snow Lab.
now they're your noise. Before they were your signal.
But I was quite interested, actually, in looking at one of your videos for your Veritasium website that you put forward within the last few weeks, actually. So let me turn it around and ask you, where do you get your ideas? You're right on top of very current topics in science. Where do you get your ideas? And
I feel like, yeah, these ideas come from all over. Like, I feel like every video has a story, has an origin story. I think the one about fast radio bursts and detecting the matter in the universe came from a talk I saw by Jocelyn Bell. And I hadn't really heard anything about fast radio bursts. I mean, if you're going to hear anything about fast radio bursts, she's the best person to hear it from, of course, the discoverer of pulsars. I was captivated by that story. And then when I heard about these fast radio bursts being used in order to determine essentially where all the ordinary matter is, I thought, you know, what a great story. What a cool story.
Do you have any advice for those of us that are trying to communicate complex topics in science to the general public?
I think one of the most important things is to speak to the audience where they are, you know, to know what they're thinking. And for me, one way to sort of ground truth that is to try to talk to people, talk to people in the general public and ask them about, some of these things and just get a baseline. So definitely engaging people and finding out what they're thinking is a great starting place. And that's worked for me.
So how did you go from an engineering physics degree at Queen's to your current occupation?
Yeah, I feel like I always wanted to be a filmmaker of some persuasion. In fact, while I was at Queen's, I enlisted my engineering buddies. We lived in a house, Division and Johnson, and we would do silly skits and sketches, and I would film them and edit it. And at that time, YouTube didn't exist. I'm talking 2003, 2004. So one of my housemates actually coded up a website for us where you could download the videos. You could sort of stream them from there. So it was our own little kind of like mini YouTube, but just for the silly videos that we were making. And we would go around campus and put up little stickers trying to advertise our site. So yeah, it was a very funny time in the early internet when we were trying to get our videos out there. But I feel like the thing I enjoy the most now is exploring these weird ideas on the edge of, certain topics. Fast radio bursts, I don't know how many, courses are being taught, at a large scale in a topic like that, but I can make a video that's really specific and pointed at that and reach a large audience and hopefully, cause people, at least some of them to think, oh, I want to know more about that. I want to get into that. So that's always where I put my focus, is into this sort of, can I spotlight little areas and kind of inspire people to want to know more, as opposed to doing something that's more, comprehensive as a course, which I leave to the experts at Queen's.
Sure. Well, I think we've probably used the time they wanted us to use, and it's been a real pleasure for me to talk with you. And I wonder if you'd like to direct people to the website that Veritasium is located at, so that they can get access to your videos.
Absolutely. They can just search Veritasium, so Veritas, like Latin for truth, and then the ending IUM on the end to make it sound like an element of truth, Veritasium.
Great. Well, it's been a real pleasure to talk with you, Derek, and
it's been great talking to you.
Well.
Thank you so much, Derek and Art. It really is inspiring to hear about the many initiatives coming out of Queen's related to the fight against COVID-19. It makes me so proud to be a member of the Queen's community. It was also awesome to hear from Derek about his path since leaving Queen's. I got to say, though, the whole time I'm thinking, like, is Derek giving me some Top Gun vibes with those shades? The bomber, like the bomber jet, anyone else? Just me? Top Gun vibes from Derek. I thought it was a good look. I did. Next up, I am thrilled to welcome the Cook family to the stage. We have George Cook, art size 75, Arthur Cook, art size 15, and Jesse Cook, art size 19 and MPA 20. They are one of our wonderful families with a long tradition of Queen's degrees across generations. They took some time out of their day to lead our Queen's Then and Now segment. This is awesome, I promise. You will see a question pop up on the screen related to your personal time at Queen's. So we hope you'll join them in answering the questions in the chat. I'm going to play along too, because even though we can't be on campus this year, it doesn't mean we can't have some fun. So take it away, Cook family.
Welcome everybody to Arts and Science Homecoming 2020. For me, it's my 45th year since I graduated in 1975 with an honors BA in political studies. And so it's very encouraging at this point to be able to be part of this virtual celebration. And I hope everybody is able to enjoy it.
Hi everybody, I'm Arthur Cook. I'm a Queen's ArtSci 2015 grad, and I'm excited to be sharing virtual homecoming with you this year.
Hi, I'm Jessie Cook. I'm ArtSci 19, MPA 20. Also looking forward to a virtual homecoming and getting to experience it through this with my brother and my dad as well.
My favorite spot to study on campus was actually in the Douglas Library, top floor, in what was affectionately known in 1971 as the Purple Passion Pit. It had a lot more to do with who else was studying there than it did with the actual art of studying.
That's fair. Well, the few times I was being studious, my favorite spot was the new medical building, second or third floor. It was more in relation to the super comfy chairs, high-speed internet, and the fact that there was a food location on the first floor. So it was the perfect trifecta for otherwise studying. But that's me.
My favorite study spot was probably software library basement. That's where I found a lot of the materials I needed in my history degree and got to use some of the really neat microfiche readers and spent a lot of time with that. So software basement for me.
The microfiche was the technology that was in when you were there, right, Dad?
Actually, I'm not sure it was invented when I was there, Arthur. Most nostalgic for me. It's probably the sense of belonging. No matter what your background is, where you come from, who you are, what you've done, you're welcome. And that's the sense that I got from day one back in 1971, and I still feel that way today.
Fair. Jess?
For me, it's visiting campus. So this is the first year that I have not been going back to school in September, and going back, I happen to be in Kingston when this is happening, and going back and visiting campus and seeing, although there's not as many students because of COVID, but just the experience of being back there in September and the leaves starting to turn definitely makes me feel the most nostalgic.
Sure. So I have, my sort of generic answer is the people, but I think it's a little bit of everything that you guys said. It's the sense that, you know, when you get on campus, like in Frosh Week, you have those fun rivalries between engineering and arts and science or commerce or anything, but it's sitting in the stands at homecoming on a football game, you know, and just having 3,000 other sort of people that are all cheering on the same team that you're on, or working in a club or anything like that. Sort of that sense of belonging, and that, you know, I miss that these days.
I had two places that I like to go. One, which will seem most odd to you young folk, was the Ponderosa Steakhouse. And it was out at Bath and Portsmouth area. I was fortunate enough to have a car, but on Tuesday nights for $3.49, you could get a ribeye steak with fries and a salad. So that was a big event for us. We usually stack more people in the car than we otherwise should have, and we'd get out of residence or out of our houses in subsequent years and head out that way. Close to campus, Mother's Pizza, which would have been located very close to where the Shoppers Drug Mart is now at Division and Princess Street, was open late, and it was always a great way to have a pizza and a drink later on.
For me, it was the Queen's Pub. And that's probably when my love affair with buffalo chicken fingers and breadsticks started, especially on Tuesdays when breadsticks were half price. Jess?
So for me, I'm following in the pizza footsteps of my father.
Oh.
I really enjoyed Score Pizza, which is just downtown on Princess Street. That's got to be one of my favorite spots, still is, even though I'm not a student anymore, but I'm still in Kingston. To grab a bite to eat, you can customize your pizza. It was delicious.
The image that's in my mind from that vantage point is really looking at the heart of the Queen's campus as it then was, and I think it distorts the real view or the real image that's in your mind if you pick on one building or another. As I would look down University Avenue, and I lived on University Avenue in my third and fourth year, so I walked down there quite a lot. What it was the image of the heart of the Queen's campus.
That's fair. Well, I think for me, it was definitely, my first year was right after a whole bunch of projects just got completed on campus. So University Avenue had just been converted to like the cobblestone street and like, you know, cool old style streetlights and everything we see today. And Stauffer Library was relatively new. So I guess my official answer is Stauffer Library, the JDUC, Douglas Library, Dunning Hall, and in my final year, the famous Scramble crosswalk that exists in Kingston, the one and only that confuses students and drivers beyond all belief.
Yeah, I took this very literally as well. What buildings did I see? So I have on each of the four corners, I have the John Deutsch University Center, Douglas Library, Stauffer Library, Dunning. Although I'm also thinking that midway through my degree, I guess it's not really on the corner, but you could see the construction of now Mitchell Hall, so the renovations of the PEC. And
Well, if you want context for that, Matt Corey was a new building as I was starting.
Geez.
We'll leave it there.
oh boy.
Would you have considered it an architectural marvel?
Absolutely.
So, question for you, Dad. What would you tell students who are just beginning their Queen's journey now?
The real question here is what I'm about to show on the screen. I actually said to both of you, the question you'll have to answer is whether or not you listen to it, okay?
Well, 50-50 chance.
This is what I would say would be study seriously, but also understand there's an amazing experience there, and you'll likely meet some of the best friends that you'll have in your lifetime through that university experience. And it's incredibly important to responsibly blend both the academics and the many, many other opportunities that you'll get by being in that kind of an environment on that kind of a campus.
So, you know, I think I actually listened to you on this one. I said join clubs and other organizations on campus. And I know that sounds sort of generic and everything else, but honestly, you know, coming from, this is arts and science. So coming from arts and science, there's so many different interesting facets of stuff that's going on campus that you you're not always privy to. And I think that's really important, meeting other people and chatting with them. And yeah, you do make some really good friends. You maybe even convince your siblings to go to Queen's. I don't know, I'm going to claim a little bit of credit for that one. And
I think she came to Queen's in spite of you, but let's hear from her.
But I said take courses that interest you. And I know that maybe seems like a strange piece of advice, or maybe just too simple, but I think the important thing is to make sure that you're really interested in what you're studying, because I find when you're passionate about something, when you're interested in something, you tend to excel in it. But just being able to take things outside of your path, making sure it's something you're passionate about, especially in arts, because it is about the content of what you learn, and I've used some of my historical knowledge in that sense as well, but it's also the applicable skills, like being able to research, being able to read, write, present your ideas clearly. And you can get that through history, you can get that through English, politics. It doesn't matter what you're studying when you pick up these skills, it's just how you apply them and what you apply them to.
so we actually did listen.
Yeah, surprisingly.
There you go. It happens on occasion.
I think one that probably sticks in my mind was while I was doing my master's. Actually, I was a don at West Campus at the time, and there was levels of tension between main campus and West Campus, and to some extent, the people at West, who these days they came up with a great slogan, "The West is best." They didn't have that in those days. They were feeling a little bit left out. And I was able to persuade the student council there to actually host a concert. And it turned out that it was the first solo concert that Dan Hill ever did. Now, you guys will know who Dan Hill is because you had to suffer through being my children. But Dan Hill was I think, an incredibly talented Canadian singer-songwriter. And we hosted a concert at West Campus, and it gave people there a sense of confidence and belonging. The reason it's memorable is because we were trying to be shut down by the concert committee of the AMS about 3 days before that was to happen. And we were able to find some creative logic that allowed us to argue in the various Queen's institutions that because it was actually off campus, that the AMS had no jurisdiction. It was just a nice chance to sort of push the establishment a little bit in a somewhat of a creative way that was actually good for Queens, in my view.
I think memorable moments, there were, and this will sound cliche, there were tons of really cool moments. But I think if I had to pick one sort of unique one that happened during my time was in my first year. It was a little bit of a rough year for students. There were some big things that changed in the world, and there was some sad events that happened on campus. But at the end of the year, we organized the Queen's lip dub to the song "We Are Golden." I went looking for it last night in preparation for all this beforehand. It's still online, which is kind of cool. So like you can see people that I was there in first year with throughout the thing. I remember faces. But it was a really fun experience. And then getting to see it and getting to sort of relive that, I don't know, that's sort of like the antithesis of that Queen's experience. It was students who really care about their community and will band together no matter where you're from to do something. I think that's my sort of unique moment.
I'll agree. There's a lot of moments that are memorable. I think for my own personal Queen's journey, one of the most memorable moments for me was my convocation. Probably not for the reasons that you think. I mean, it's the end of your degree. It's a fantastic ceremony, but I think for me it was the ability to have my family there. So I had you.
Aww.
Oh yeah, okay.
Jess,
just be quiet. So I had Arthur, Dad, you were there, Mom was there, and we had my elderly grandma there as well. And that was really neat that she got to see 2 of her grandkids graduate. And then one of the neat elements about it is somebody somewhere decided that my dad could be considered distinguished. I'm not sure who did that, but he got to hood me on stage. And that was really cool because it was, obviously I've had some fantastic professors and being hooded is neat, but it's really neat to be hooded by your dad in a ceremony and then have the picture of that as well. It's a pretty cool moment.
So I started in engineering, and unlike what you guys went through, we didn't create our own song. We had a lot of songs. So the answer to your question is I remember them, but they would likely be considered socially not responsible or something that I should really be talking about today. If you'd like, I could try a few verses of the engineers.
No, that is totally fine.
Regardless of the content, I'm not sure your singing is something we need to include here.
Yeah. So Jess, what was your song?
So my song in first year was Avalanche by Walk the Moon. And I remember various parts of that dance, and maybe if you played it and somebody else was dancing, I might be able to pick it up. But quite honestly, I remember more of the dance from second year when I was a Gale, because I had to be so careful that I knew it so that I could actually teach it to other people, that I think it sort of took up all the space of my own actual dance, and it's gone.
My song was She's Got Me Dancing by Tommy Sparks in my first year. And I had to think about that one. But I also remember from first year not knowing exactly what a Queen's Orientation Week was like. It was really cool to be on a field with 500 other first year students doing the exact same thing. And more importantly, also looking over and understanding that people went left when they should have gone right at the same time too.
What an awesome family and a great game that was. I loved reading your responses. I played along too. For me, studying was always at Club Stauffer, and only at Queen's is the library so packed that it's known as a club. I get nostalgic thinking about Richardson Stadium, probably because of soccer and watching games. I loved it there. And the food, did anyone else? For me, it was the Brass for greasy brunch. But Woodenheads was if your parents are in town, maybe you can afford to go there, maybe. Marco Polo, I believe, was my go-to order at Woodenheads. And as far as my advice for Queen's grads, or Queen's students, it's just savor it. It really does fly. So make the memories because time goes really quickly. And speaking of memories, it's been such a treat reliving some of my favorite memories with you today. This concludes our formal agenda for the evening. We want to invite you to check out the networking lounges to connect with others. And thank you again to our guests, all of them: Barbara Crow, Ariane Chaudhry, Derek Muller, Art McDonald, George Cook, Arthur Cook, Jesse Cook, the whole Cook family for your participation. Oh, I have a little visitor who's coming in. This is work from home, but he wants to say hi in his Queen's homecoming attire and participate. So thank you, all of you, for not letting anything get in the way of celebrating together. Enjoy networking with your classmates. If you have any issues, the help desk is there, and go Gales.